My name's Tim, I'm an alcoholic. Thank you to the committee and our hosts who've been absolutely wonderful. I've really enjoyed myself and it's very well organised. So hooray for everyone who's made this possible. I'm sorry I'm not... Oh, yes. I apologise for not being more dressed up. My ball gown is at the dry cleaners this evening, so there we go. I was thinking of where the name Alcoholics Anonymous came from, and I hadn't prepared this. It just occurred to me as I was sitting there. And I think this is from the book, the recent history book on AA by William Scharberg, History, the Big Book. It's certainly a story my sponsor has told me. When they were trying to come up with the name for the book that became Alcoholics Anonymous, which then gave its name to the fellowship, they had a number of different names. And there was a man wandering up and down who had Korsakoff's syndrome, a so-called wet brain. His brain had been very much damaged by alcohol, a former publisher of a very prominent journal in New York. And he was wandering up and down, mumbling the phrase, Alcoholic Anonymous, or not Anonymous Alcoholic, Anonymous Alcoholic, Anonymous Alcoholic. And they flipped it Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's where the name came from. And I never want to graduate beyond being an anonymous alcoholic from an anonymous home group in a fellowship of anonymous people. When I was drinking, I really thought I was someone. And to stay sober, I need to become no one. My last drink was on the 24th of July, 1993, and let me tell you, that was... I think God very much enjoyed that little round of applause for him, because it certainly wasn't down to me. There is a line in the Big Book where Bill says that he was separated from alcohol for the last time. I hope I've been separated from alcohol for the last time. And I've got a bunch of sponsees on step 1 at the moment. And several people have yoked together, joined together 2 phrases as though they're the same thing. Stopping drinking and staying stopped. Stopping drinking and staying stopped. They sound like they're connected. I don't think they're connected at all. When I drink vast quantities and go to dangerous places. But far worse than that, I go into a fog where I forget what sobriety was like. And as Lisa said, the only life which seems the normal one is the alcoholic one. I was sober for 3 months in 1991. And I'll tell you, sometimes you'll hear the stories about I got sober and the pain was terrible, and I believe these stories. In those 3 months, everything got better. I stopped having hangovers. I stopped feeling physically sick. I could start to taste food. My daily routine started to get back to normal. I actually got a literal job where I did stuff and they gave me some money. I was amazed. I had never had a job in my life. And I saved loads of money. I also stole loads of money, but I saved loads of money. And I thought, I've undone so much of the damage of the last year. Money in the bank, I'm going to get back to London and it's going to be different. I wasn't planning to get back to London and drink. I was simply planning to get back to London and try to rebuild a life, try to build the bridges with other people. The suicidal feelings started to abate after a few weeks. I was doing really well. I was getting better. My system somehow knows how to right itself. But then one day, I found myself drinking again, and for a few days it was fine. And I was then drunk for 1.5 years. I don't need to be desperate for a drink to have the first drink. In the language, people talk about craving. I'll be in the office and someone will say, middle of the afternoon, I've got a craving for chocolate. And Sally will go to the supermarket, buy some chocolate, eat the chocolate, and the chocolate will satisfy the craving. Craving first, consumption, satisfaction, boom, she gets on with the afternoon. I can be having a perfectly normal day, and I don't particularly want to drink, but there's a drink there, and I have it. There's no craving. Consumption first. Boy, does the craving then hit. And it goes consumption, craving, consumption, craving, consumption, craving. No satisfaction. Some people say, I drank because I liked the way it felt. I drank when I didn't like the way it felt. I would have evenings drinking where 2 drinks in, my mind was going to the dark side. And I knew the more I drank, the more it would slide down the slope. I would be out on the town with my friends, drinking at the age of 17, having honestly a great time, but then something would click in my mind and I would need to leave the company of the people that I was with and find trouble and danger. And boy, did I find trouble and danger. I did not want to continue drinking in that situation. I did not want to be doing the things that I was doing, but I was driven by a force bigger than me, bigger than my reason, bigger than my emotion, bigger than anything. And I simply had to sit it out until it was done. If my alcoholism gets activated again, I do not know what is going to happen. When I drink alcohol, it doesn't satisfy my desire, it amplifies it. Now, none of that is a problem if I don't have the first drink. And the problem is the desire for the first drink. Now, very much is made of the phrase restless, irritable, discontent. And I certainly had these periods of internal conflict when will I, won't I, will I, won't I, will I, won't I. I had a period when I was living, God help me, in Russia in 1993 in St. Petersburg, where I'd already joined AA, but I wasn't permanently sober yet. And the tension created by the 2 voices inside me, the one that wanted to be sober and well and the one that just wanted to shoot the place up, that tension is the restless, irritable discontent. But the big book is so interesting when you read it after going to AA for years. I first read the big book years after going to AA. Now, I had read it in a sense when I was new, in that my eyes had moved from word to word to the ends of sentences, and I grammatically understood the sentences and I knew technically what the words meant. I didn't interact with any of it. I didn't ask, what does this mean for me? Is any of this real? Why are they saying this? What is the message they're trying to tell me? I didn't do any of that. It just went over the surface, slid over the surface. And there's the weirdest thing. You'd think if you went to 100 meetings, and let's say you got a regular person, and you sent them to a meeting, and you said, right, 100 meetings. Go to these meetings, ask yourself, based on what people say, why people drink again. And you'll get lots of stories about emotion and circumstances and situations and childhood and trauma and blah, blah, blah. And those things are real and they happen and whatever, fine. But are they the reason why a person drinks again? The stories in the big book, I think, are so interesting. You've got the certain American businessman who goes to see Carl Jung. He's in the peak of mental and physical health. What happens? He gets drunk. Then you've got the man of 30, sober for 25 years. After a successful and happy business career, he gets drunk. Jim is his life is on the up. He's having a perfectly normal day. No signs that he's about to have a drink. He gets drunk. Fred has a sensational life. End of the perfect day. He has a drink. Bill, in the Mayflower Hotel, is having the most awful day. He's literally broke in Akron, which is not somewhere you want to be broke when you don't come from Akron. You want to be somewhere else in the 1930s. He was broke, he was miserable, his business deal had failed. Nothing was going his way. He was alone. There was no fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. There were no 24-hour Zoom meetings. And he stayed sober. Bill, page 15, waves of self-pity and resentment. He stays sober. It's got nothing to do with any of that. And that mirrors my experience completely. I'm an alcoholic. I'm also a member of Al-Anon. And I have also in my life done a bunch of other things for which there are 12-step fellowships and which, Gott sei Dank, a day at a time, I'm clean and abstinent and whatever the buzzword is from. Today, we're good. And I see the same pattern play out with every single addiction in addition to alcoholism, every single addictive pattern. It talks in the book about one reason and one reason only why Jim and Fred and these other people failed to stay sober. These people who knew they were alcoholics. I mean, I've known I was an alcoholic since the age of 16. And it said he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. That's it, no other explanation given. And I've been slippy with so many behaviours when everything is going well and I'm having a great day and there are successes. And when I'm having a terrible day. My illusion was because, let's say I'd have a bad day and then I'd drink, I thought I drank because of the bad day. Or I drank after a great success, an exam result. Or I drank because of the exam. No, it came after. After doesn't mean because. The terrifying thing is that my alcoholism seems to be a little bit of my brain which is now programmed, apparently forever, to send up a command to me to say, go and have a drink. I don't know when it's going to wake up and start doing that. What it's like having a nightclub where all of the ideas of things to do today are lining themselves up, wanting to come in, and there is a bouncer with a little red rope, and the bouncer checks the credentials of each of the people wanting to get into the club. So my brain is looking at each of these ideas coming along, saying, do me, I'm a good idea. And my brain with other stuff today is largely fine. But I know with my alcoholism, it's going to queue up with all of the other ideas saying, do me, do me. But there's something wrong with the bouncer. The bouncer, when he sees alcohol queuing up saying, drink me, he just lifts the red cable, says, come on in. And alcoholism goes straight through to the VIP room. No questions asked, and we're off again. That is the scary thing. And it can happen quickly, it can happen slowly. I've had the thought of a drink in the most bizarre situations. I've had the thought of a drink in sketchy situations. I've had the thought of a drink when walking down the road with a sponsee, talking about spiritual stuff. I remember walking along the Thames one day in London, which is where I live currently, and I saw someone, you know those summer days when the sky is very, very low and it's close and warm and claustrophobic, and if someone has a cold glass of beer, all of the condensation forms on the outside into little beads which run down the side of the glass, and whatever you do, you're thirsty. And I was walking with my sponsee, and I saw a man with this beer with the glistening beads on the outside. I thought to myself, I could drink that before anyone realised what was going on. Why? Because I'm alcoholic. And that part of my brain is simply programmed. That's it. I don't care why it's programmed. I don't care what programmed it. But the evidence seems to be, from my own experience with slippiness with other behaviours and my observation and the very many people I've known, that alcoholism can be reactivated at any point. And if reactivated, it is devilishly difficult to halt. This is what I meant about the two questions of stopping drinking and not starting again, entirely different. Bill was separated from alcohol, and the chain of events that has to take place for someone to be separated from alcohol is mind-boggling. I had years of evidence, day after day after day after day, that I should not drink, I should not continue drinking, I should not drink the amount that I'm drinking, I should not hang out with the people that I'm hanging out with. I was crystal clear, but the knowledge did absolutely nothing to my alcoholism. And then one day, the thought occurs to me, call this number. And I do it. And I don't know why I'm doing it. Why did I call AA in January 1993? No idea, no clue. I didn't make a logical decision based on a sound analysis of the facts. It was an impulse which could have arisen in any of the previous 6 or 7 years, but didn't. If I drink again, that impulse may come the next day, or it may not. I was given the ability not just to make that phone call, but to follow through and go to a meeting. The woman on the phone, she said to me, this was 10 o'clock in the morning, there is a meeting 1 mile away at 8 o'clock this evening. Between now and then, don't drink. And I followed her instruction. I had the power to do something. I could not have instructed myself to do that. I was given power that I did not have to perform an action which was almost physically impossible. I was so ill that day. I threw up several times. I was shaking. I was sweating. I'm very lucky I didn't have a seizure, frankly. But I didn't. and I got to the meeting, and they said, Al-Anon is down the road. I weighed 90 pounds. I looked, I'm told, like a ghost. People shuddered because they thought I was literally going to die. And a process started, and all I had to do was not interfere with the process. Something bigger than me, the process, was given to me. I was separated from alcohol physically by that process. And once the alcohol was out of my system, fully out of my system, then an entirely different project is underway. The project is don't go back. Many years ago, I went swimming, and I'm a terrible swimmer, off the coast of Biarritz in France, where they have lots of surfing, lots of waves, Bay of Biscay. And there was a storm coming. And when the storm is on its way in 24 hours, you get massive waves, and everyone was having fun in the waves. And I got sucked out to sea, and I got back by the skin of my teeth. I got into a current, and the current brought me back. If I drink, the current might bring me back, or it might not. It is not up to me. Once the alcohol is out of my system, it's up to me. It's up to me to be one thing, which is honest. And what it says on page 58, that the only people that don't make it are the people that can't be honest. And I've been so close to drinking in my first few years, but I didn't. And I've met so many other people who have drunk again. Some have got back, some haven't. And sure, sometimes there are situations where people were keeping secrets to themselves, and it does happen. I believe, just from my observation, my experience, that it's talking about a different type of honesty that is required. And I think that honesty is twofold. The honesty is this: I don't know how to live, but you do. So I'm going to do what you suggest, even though it is obviously insane. I'm going to say lots of insane things now, and you've got the choice to believe them and try them out or ignore them. Up to you. I don't care. I'm just an anonymous alcoholic up here for reasons I don't understand. I'll come on to the solution in a moment. I'll come on to the insane solution. But I want to tell you first of all about why I love the insane fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I work in an insanely regulated industry with endless requirements and legislation and regulations and rules and systems and procedures and methods and lots of modern words. And I feel like I'm in a straitjacket. And I come to AA, and my little AA group, who's in charge of it? No one. No one's in charge. There are no rules. There are no regulations. There are no procedures. There are no methods. There's nothing to read. There's nothing to do. We're just together. Who can tell us what to do? No one. We don't exist as a legal entity. There is no one to sue. Very helpful. Can another group tell us what to do? No. It's none of their business. They can do a little column. Can't write a little column. Column 1, I'm resentful at Dardlar meeting. The cause, they're doing it wrong. And guess who they get to go to with their complaint? They get to go to God. So if anything is going to happen to my group, God will have to do something about it. There we go. Got a problem? Go to God. God is very big, very powerful, and will sort it out. What about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous? What about region? Intergroup, surely they have some power. No. They serve us. We tell them what to do. In my group, we don't tell anyone what to do. Because they don't listen anyway. Have you noticed? Have you ever tried telling an alcoholic what to do? Jesus. Well, there are a couple of people who are a bit stern. If someone's a bit naughty, one of the stern people wags their little finger and it's over. There are people that just have authority. No one knows how they have it, but they've got it. There was a situation a few years ago where there was a creep and angry, bad combination. And he was creepy around some people, and so we circled the wagons and we said, look, mate, we can talk to you about alcoholism, but you need to stay away from him, her and him. Deal, but we'll talk to you about alcoholism over here. And he went off in a huff and we thought that was the end of it. We were at the restaurant afterwards and I saw him coming along the street, and I'm not a big man. Am I a man? Who knows? Anyway, I'm not a big man. I'm not a fighter. And this bloke was 6'4", big. And I saw him coming towards the restaurant and I thought we need to sort this out before something happens. And we want to maintain a good relationship with the restaurant. We don't want trouble inside, but this is a bad situation. And I went to the door. I blocked the entrance. There was a little kind of airlock entrance. I blocked the entrance and I said, out. And he didn't know what was happening, so I took him, I turned him and I pushed. And by this point, 4 other people who were not thinking about themselves, so they were paying attention, had risen to their feet and were now backing me up. And we dealt with a situation that could not have been legislated for, but there were some people who were awake and we dealt with it, and we never saw him again. And that's my experience of AA, is that a strong group knows how to deal with anything. There is someone in the room who knows what to do, and it works, and I love it. It talks in the book about the informality. No rules to follow, no axes to grind, the genuine democracy. If anyone can be expelled from AA, I can be expelled from AA. If everyone is welcome, I can be welcome. There is nowhere for me to be referred to from AA, so I'm going to stay. And you know what? I'm not worried about AA. My friend Eamon said, if AA vanished and the AA program vanished and the fellowship, nothing left, but you have the 12 steps. That is the DNA from which you could reconstruct the whole thing. Because alcoholism is always going to be there. You've got the steps, you've got you've got God. Build it from scratch. I've lived in places where in the fellowship no one talked about the steps, no one talked about God, and I had no choice but to simply say really unpopular things about the steps and God, to find one person and then a second person that I could carry the message to in the teeth of opposition from the fellowship around me that was not interested in that stuff. And I got to learn how to do that in a way which did not antagonize the people that were there. Very difficult. And I've learned how to build the fellowship I crave, because I'm someone whose alcoholism is so powerful, it needs something even more powerful to deal with it, and that power is God. What God is, up to you to figure out. It's just a code word for something which is way bigger than alcohol. AA, in a sense, solves one problem and one problem only. When the thought of a drink occurs to me, AA gives me something to do other than obey that thought. And I think AA is a funny sort of obedience program, where what it teaches me to do is to live not by emotion, not by impulse, not by my own best thinking, not even by common sense. It talks about uncommon sense. It tells me to live by inspiration, an intuitive thought, and a decision, page 86. To live in accordance with the system of the 12 steps and the principles in the 12 steps. To consult wise older people in AA. To run ideas, as Bill does in the 12 and 12, past the group. Anything other than me sitting on the throne of my own life, the king of everything I observe, anything other than that, I am taken completely out of the decision-making process. When the thought of a drink occurs to me, it has no more power than any other thought that occurs to me, because it has already been decided how I'm going to live. I can't hope to turn to God in a moment of crisis if I'm in the habit of ruling myself. So I'm going to tell you some of the insane things that I have to do to stay sober. It says in step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of a power greater than ourselves, over to the care of God. What this means is that's literally the last decision I've ever made. I mean, decision making is really hard and painful, and then you get it wrong and it's embarrassing. So I don't make decisions. I haven't made a decision in years. When a situation comes along where I could do A or I could do B, I say, God, what do you want me to do? And either an answer comes straight away or it doesn't. So with my work, I get all sorts of offers of things to do. I used to work out what to do. I used to think about what to do. I don't anymore. I say to God, what do you want me to do? And very often God will say no to that. And that's insane. Why would I turn down work from this? But my life is going to shrink. I'll have no money. There will be no way to live. I'm shooting myself in the foot. This is self-sabotage. This is self-destructive. I have no good reason to say no. I know I don't like those people, but there is no good reason to say no. Work is work. And the voice says, say no. So I say no. Then something else comes along. And I say yes. Same thing, but in reverse. You can't live like that. Except I do, and it really works. I haven't had to market myself work-wise for over 20 years. That doesn't make sense. That is not how anyone in my industry works. I say no to some things, I say yes to others, I ask God. Shouldn't work. My relationship with my other half, You know what they say? If you read books about relationships, they say, you have to be honest. You have to say how you feel. You have to tell if the other person upsets you. You have to say, when you do X, I feel Y. And then you have to explain. And then you have to set boundaries. And then you have to monitor the boundaries. And then you have to tell the person your dreams and your wants and your desires and all the things going on inside you. And you must have no secrets. You must do everything. Oh, I don't do any of that. If I'm upset with my other half, phone my sponsor. He says, keep your big fat mouth shut. When I had a very bright idea that I might be better off with a different partner many years ago, my sponsor said, become entirely happy with spending the rest of your life with the person that you are with, and once you're in that position, come back and we'll revisit the question of whether or not to leave him. So I got to learn how to be at peace with someone that at that moment I was very doubtful about. I followed the advice of an insane Texan, a different one, one that's still in Texas, oil man, who I have nothing in common with. I take relationship advice from someone that's been divorced 3 or 4 times. I really do. Dame Edna Everage was interviewing some Hollywood star, and she said, you've had 5 successful marriages. Tell me, what's your secret? Our relationship difficulties a few years ago, many years ago now, and I went to see an even older Texan, a man that got sober in 1957 and is still alive and is still sober. And what he said was, if you have darkness in your heart and in your mind, you do not have the right to inflict that on another person except your sponsor and any confessor that you have. That's your problem to deal with. Do not poison the relationship with it. Do not poison the home with it. Don't spread it everywhere. Deal with it. And in the meantime, you put a good face on and you forgive the other person for everything and you serve. Woo! Completely insane, makes absolutely no sense. And my other half and I have been together for 20 years and we've never had an argument, and it's because I follow that advice. What do I do what does my AA life look like? I was told in 1993 I organised my life around AA, not AA around my life. Now I've been waiting for the Wimbledon housewife, Maureen, to call me back to rescind the order, but she never has, so it remains in place. I don't know if she even remembers telling me that, but to me the order stays in place. So the first thing that goes in my schedule every week is the meetings I'm going to go to. I have the sponsees to deal with. I have my morning meditation meeting with 150 of my closest friends online every day. I have other spiritual things that I do in addition to, not instead of, Step 11. I have my Step 11. I have lots of service assignments. And somehow, after all of that is taken care of, I get to go and do a few things for which I earn some money. But AA is the centre of my life. And from the outside, my work life, I guess, looks okay. You'll have to ask someone else. I've never got a call from a bank or a letter from a bank telling me I've done something wrong, so something must be going right there. And it comes from putting AA first. Everything else comes second. And God has a way of making this whole deal fit together. If I'm about doing God's business, God seems to look after mine. Each day I have a very simple daily program. I get up, I make contact with my higher power, and I turn up and I ask for my orders for the day. And then I'm to get on with those orders for the day and go to bed. And when I go to bed, I debrief with the higher power and say, what went well, what went badly, what do you want me to do differently tomorrow? Someone the other day said, how do you do your written step 10s? And in the big book, there is nothing about writing in step 10, so I don't have to do it. Oh, what a relief. I can do the steps wrong in two ways. I can do them either by not doing what is there on the page or by doing more than what is there on the page. One is as destructive as the other, in my experience. I've tried to overblow steps 6 and 7. But there are other things where I must do precisely what it says. So in step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed. Step 9, made amends to such people. That means all the people. And I needed to get to a position where there was no one left on the planet that I was aware I owed amends to, that I had not done my utmost to make amends to. I need to do that because that's what it says on the page. That's the important thing. We try to carry this message to other alcoholics. That's something I get to do every day. And we practice these principles in all our affairs, which means I get to look at each area of my life systematically and work the 12 steps on my finances, work the 12 steps in relationships, work the 12 steps on my sponsorship of sponsees, work the 12 steps on my work situation. So when things get difficult and periodically, I run through the first 9 steps again. I do that because I like the effect it produces. I never learn anything new anymore by doing the first 9 steps, but they're not about learning, they're about experience. They're about puncturing the balloon, the bloated nothingness of self, this horrendous idea that I am a physical body running around a physical world, dependent on physical things, needing all sorts of people, places and things to be exactly the way I prescribe for me to make a name for myself, to make some security in the world. Thank God none of that is true or real. I've been given a vision of a different way of living where I can look at any part of my life and say, if it's taken from me, good luck to it. Because I can't afford to care about things on the material level. I take care of them diligently on behalf of my higher power, but I am the agent, not the principal. My life does not belong to me. And I love it. I absolutely love the life that is not mine, because I get to play and I can say what I want and I don't care what people think. So if you like us, very good. And if you don't, that's all right too, but you don't need to tell me and we can still have dinner together. Thank you for listening.